Hello, good morning, everybody. This is so exciting. This is very exciting. We have had over 400 teachers register for this morning's free training, which is so exciting. We're going to have a really, really great time. So there's two views of me today. There's going to be this one where I'm going to play you some stuff, and then there's going to be this one where I'm talking to you and where I'm a little bit out of shot. Anyway. It's all going to be heaps and heaps of fun. Right, so this is great. Can I have a thumbs up for people who are having a good day so far? Yeah, this is great. This is fantastic. And now I would like to encourage you all to say hello to each other in the chat and say where you're from, especially if you are not from Sydney. I'm coming to you from sunny Sydney. So please say hello. Oh, wow. Yay, Michigan, USA, Melbourne. Poor Melbourne. Poor Melbourne's been plunged into lockdown the same as Sydney, which is really, really hard. Okay, so we're going to get started. I'm really, really, really looking forward to this. The first thing I thought we would do, while everyone's saying hello, is we're going to do a bit of a warm-up, okay? So we're going to do some clapping and tapping and actions all in 3-4 times. So I've got the lovely Beth Horton helping me today. So Beth, can you spotlight me over here, please? And I would like everybody to get ready. We're going to do this in 3-4. So can you copy me? Okay. So if I'm looking over here, it's because I'm just wanting to see you all do it. Okay. Right. So can you do this? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Excellent. 1, 2, 3. Okay, good. Now I'm going to do 2 in a row. So you're going to keep going while I am still going. You're going to be 1 bar behind me. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Clap now. Head now. Lap now. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Knees now. Clap now. Shoulders now. If you happen to have a piano there, then that would have worked for that last one. Okay, that is an activity I do called cannon clapping. I do it with my students all the time as a warm-up. It works particularly well in online lessons. It doesn't look right to you when you can see your students do it. It's a little bit out of sync, but it's a fun warm-up. And we did it in 3-4 because later today, the piece that we're all going to learn together, which is called Spanish, is in 3-4, and it mostly has these rhythms. So 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3. So the little bit of a flamenco rhythm. Okay, so right, we are going to formally start. So hello, I'm going to come back over here, and my name is Samantha Coates, and I have met heaps of you before. But for those of you who don't know me, I've been teaching piano for a very long time. I've been running Blitz books, which are music education materials, for 20 years. From the view behind me, you can see that I am happily married. I've been married for 27 years. And you can also see that I've got students. They're all participating in the 40-piece challenge, and that's why there's stacks of dots on the wall. So when they start a piece, they get a yellow dot, and when that piece is finished, a green dot goes on top of the yellow dot. So it's gradually progressing throughout the year. So that is really, really fun to do. So I have been teaching piano for 36 years, but for the first 32 of those years, I thought that rote teaching was bad. I thought that I was brought up to believe that rote was a really, really bad thing. And I never, ever used rote in my teaching. And rote does have a bad reputation. So for example, what is your, maybe you could use an emoji or just show me your facial expression. What is your instinctive reaction when you hear yes, crying? That's right. Or when you hear, or even when you hear, okay, so our instinctive reaction is perhaps one of stress, because that music is usually taught by rote, and it's people play them who can't actually play the piano. That music is associated with people who can't play the piano and who are musically illiterate. So the best thing that we can do today is get over that bad reputation that rote has. And the way I have gotten over it is by discovering all the good things about it. So the plan for today is that we're going to overhaul rote's bad reputation, and we're going to do some piano playing and some reading. And then we're going to do some composing, and I'm going to show you how I use my materials, Rote Repertoire, the whole series that I wrote, and I use it every lesson and every student, no matter their age or ability. It's so easy for them and it's so easy for me. And then after all that, we're going to have a great big Q&A, which is what was actually advertised for today. So I'd like to encourage you to put your questions in the chat as we go, as they occur to you, because the lovely Beth is going to collate them all. And any questions we don't get to today, I'm going to answer them in the follow-up webinar gift pack. Right, so there's no advertised finishing time for today, but we're probably going to go for around 60 to 75 minutes. If you have to go, that's no problem. Don't worry. You will get the replay sent to you if you miss out on the end. That is fine. I know everyone's very, very busy. Okay, so, and at the end, I'll be telling you all about this webinar gift pack and what you're getting and the freebies and the specials and stuff like that. Okay, so we're going to start off by taking a bit of a poll. Now, my repertoire materials have been around for almost exactly 3 years. I launched them in the middle of 2018. It's a digital series, and I wondered how many people use them or are familiar with them. So Beth's going to put up the poll now, and even though the questions are asking you whether you use rote teaching, I'm actually specifically asking you if you've used Blitzbook's Rote Repertoire materials. So do you use this style of teaching often, as in use Blitzbook's Rote Repertoire? Do you know about it? Do you know about those materials but you don't use it? Or perhaps you've purchased some but you don't use them? Or you're absolutely unfamiliar with this product, completely unfamiliar. So once again, even though the poll talks about rote style teaching, what we really want to know is, do you use Blitzbook's Rote Repertoire? So I'm going to say I use this often. Okay, and I'm going to submit that. All right. Oh, that's very lovely of you, Jennifer Fox, to say that use it and love it. That is really, really nice. Okay, so another quick warm-up of our Spanish. Now, if you're in front of a piano, this is super fun. So we're going to do a combination of tapping and playing. So I would like you to get into a D minor hand position, please. So I would like you to go like, can you play a D minor chord in each hand? And now can you play a D fifth in each hand? Okay, and so sometimes we're going to be tapping and sometimes we're going to be playing. So perhaps 1, 2, 3, like that, or 1, 2, 3. Now, if you don't have a piano in front of you, just do the actions maybe on your lap. Okay, here we go. So we'll start off with D minor, and we'll just do a chord in each hand. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Left, right, right. 2, 3. Left, right, right, right. 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's just an another little warm up because we are going to be using those patterns later. Okay, great. Right, back to here. So now let's talk about rote repertoire and how it all now, what are the results of our poll, please, Miss Beth?
Okay. So the largest number, 43%, I know about rote but do not use it. 30%, I use this style of teaching often, and 28%, I am unfamiliar with this style of teaching.
Okay.
So a pretty mixed, like pretty even split.
That is a pretty even split. So we're just going to do a very brief overview of what it's all about. So, okay, I'm coming back over here now. All right. So first things first, music is a language. And the way we learn our native language is that we speak it before we learn to read it and write it. We speak it first. And that is also what should happen with music. With music, we should sing it and hear it and play it before we read it and write it. But so often when we teach piano, and this is certainly the way I was taught, it goes from notation first. We show a student a note and we say, oh, this is a C, and then we show them how to play a C. But the notation doesn't have to come first, and it probably shouldn't come first. And often if we do go from notation first, what happens is, and this is what happens in the method books, that the pieces our students get to play are actually quite boring. If we only make them play what they can read, they end up playing pieces like this. Re, do, re, do, re, do. You know, like nobody wants to play pieces like that when they're first learning piano. And I mean, we don't limit children's speaking to what they can read. So for example, in my workshops, I tell a story about a little boy who goes into school. It's his first day of kindergarten, and he goes in with his little toy Tyrannosaurus, and he goes up to his teacher and he says, "Look, miss, look, it's my Tyrannosaurus." Now, imagine if the teacher said this to the little boy, and his name's Johnny, by the way. He said, "Well, Johnny, do you know, that's lovely, but do you see this, Johnny? This says Tyrannosaurus. Now, Johnny, you don't know how to read this. You just said the word Tyrannosaurus, but you don't know how to read Tyrannosaurus. So from now on, I do not want you to say the word Tyrannosaurus. From now on, I only want you to say words that you can read. So you can only say the and a." Now, this would never happen in school. That would never happen. Teachers do not limit children's speaking to what they can read. The reading comes afterwards. They can already speak. And so with piano playing, if we use rote teaching, we can get students to play something that they can't read yet, but that sounds fantastic and beautiful. Now, the problem with doing that, of course, is that if we keep doing that all the way through our students' careers, they'll never learn to read. And that's the problem with rote teaching. So we can't do that. So there are two extremes. Now I'm going to put up a little graph here, and I would like to know where you sit on this graph. So if you only use notation in your teaching, you are going to put a 1 in the chat. You would say, okay, you're a 1. And if you teach purely by rote, and you never show your students any notation at all, you're going to put a 10 in the chat. Now, I used to be a 1. I never used rote teaching. But I would say that now I am pretty much a 5. A 4 or a 5, definitely. I had a very, very classical and conservative piano upbringing, and I was never allowed to play a single piece that I couldn't read. I wasn't allowed to play a single note that I hadn't read first. But I think that, and I used to teach like that, and I don't now. Okay, so we're getting quite a few numbers here, and I reckon there's an average of sort of below 5 coming up here. So most people are more on the notation side than the rote side, and that is in keeping with my experience with who I've met in workshops, certainly over the last 3 years. So now, don't get me wrong. Even though I use a lot of rote in my lessons, I'm absolutely passionate about reading. I've spent the last 20 years developing resources for theory and sight reading. So I'm very passionate about notation. But I've discovered a way to get students to sight read interesting pieces so that we're not limited by this music notation in the beginning. All right, so it's all about combining rote and reading. So this is a very, very important part of the development of my series. I had this epiphany. It was actually when I went to MTNA, the Music Teachers National Association in Baltimore in 2017, and I went to a session by Julie Nur and Catherine Fisher, who are the authors of Piano Safari. Give me a thumbs up if you know about Piano Safari, the method. And they were doing a session entitled Rote is Not a Four-Letter Word. What a cool title for a session, hey? It's really, really good because rote does have such a bad reputation. Now, I had my epiphany that while listening to them speak about the benefits of rote teaching, I thought, wow, this could be amazing. And what about instead of having just pieces that are purely for rote? And I mean, you know, you can get students to play beautiful things when you're teaching them by rote. You can get them improvising on black notes and doing fantastic things that we would never expect them to read. But what if we instead of having pieces that are just for notation and pieces that are just for rote, what if there was a way of combining them so that we could get some reading elements? And that's where my series was born. So I'm just going to give you an idea of how it's done, because I use a spot the difference approach in the learning. So they learn to play a piece by rote, then they see the score, then they spot the difference with other versions of that score. And I've experimented with this type of teaching a couple of ways. Once I did an Ignite talk. An Ignite is a lightning talk, and you do it to the general public. And my topic for this Ignite talk was From Zero to Muso in 5 Ignite minutes. I taught 300 people how to sight sing in 5 minutes. It was in a bar, so they were kind of drunk. So I taught 300 drunk people how to sight sing. I'm going to put the link to that video in the webinar gift pack because it's quite fun to watch. But then at conferences that I would do, I thought, well, I'm not going to teach music teachers how to sight sing because they already know. You already know. So instead, I'm going to teach music teachers a language they don't already know. So I thought, what if I could teach everybody how to read, let's say, Hebrew in a very short period of time. Now, I've got a video of me doing this at Tim Topham's conference at the beginning of last year before the pandemic hit, the Piano Pivot Live conference. I'm going to show you this video now. It just goes for 2.5 minutes, and I'm teaching the whole room of piano teachers how to read Hebrew. And I start off with rote, teaching them to read one word by rote, and then through a spot the difference approach, we eventually get to reading. So here is that video.
Here's a page of Hebrew. Does this look like gobbledygook to you? Yes, good. Well, in about 3 minutes or less, we are going to, Carly's going to time us, we are going to be reading this fluently. I'm going to teach you one word by rote. This word says alech, and it's read from right to left. Alech. Okay, can everyone say alech? Alech. Excellent. So ready, set, go. All right, so we've, now you've got to do the on the end. Very important. Alech. That's right to left. Okay, great. Do you see any alechs on this page? Yes? Yeah, and what do you think this sound will be then? Ah, exactly. So let's read this page. Here we go. Alech, 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 ah, brilliant. Let's put all of that in a box on the right. So this is the page you just read. Now spot the difference with the box on the left. Do you see? Just call it out. Do you see any differences? Yes? Yes, second line. These now say, woo, these now say, oh, watch out for that. Al. Second line now says al. Any other differences? Bottom line. The symbol at the end, that's a m. Can you say m? Yeah, that's this one. This is a m. And any other differences? Yes, the top line. There's like a bulldog thing and the bulldog clip shape thing instead of the two dots. When there's a bulldog clip shape, that is alecha instead of alech. So we're starting off with alechas now. Okay, let's read this page. Here we go from the top right. Alecha, al, alecha, m. Oh, perfect. Let's put all of that in a box on the right. So you just read the box on the right. Spot the difference with the box on the left. What do you see? There's also on that screen. Okay, what do you see that's different here? Second line, we've got a m on the end after the al. We've got more m's at the bottom and very good. Alternating dots and bulldog clips. Very good. So we've got alech, alecha, and what do you notice in the third line? It's the other way around. So here we go. This is the page I showed you that was gobbledygook just a minute ago. Let's read it. Alech, alecha, al, m. Alecha, alech, m, Fantastic. How long did that take, Carly? 2 minutes, 15 seconds. Give yourselves a clap.
Okay. So, give me a little smiley face or something in the chat if you enjoyed that, or a thumbs up. That is an example of this spot the difference approach. And, you know, music does look like gobbledygook to students when they first start. It does look like that. And if they're spotting the difference between two scores that are sort of similar but have a couple of differences, it's just like spot the difference with two pictures. Preschoolers can spot the difference in two pictures. And when they have seen the difference, and then we can relate that difference to how it sounds, that is when we are learning to read. That is the beginning of all reading skills. So if you could learn to read Hebrew, a page of Hebrew in 2.5 minutes, then your students can learn to read a page of music, certainly over a period of 3 weeks when they do 3 levels. So I'm going to use this approach now. I'm going to teach you a piece of music. And if you've got a piano there, great, and you're going to learn how to play it. And if not, that's fine. You can just mime or pretend to do it. Not at all, not a problem at all. So the piece of music is called Spanish, and it's called Spanish, as in Span-ish. It's Spanish. Okay, so I'm going to teach this to you now by rote. We're not going to use the score, okay? And we're going to start off in our D minor hand position. And so we have a fifth on D in the left hand and F and A in the right hand. Now, obviously, if you were teaching this online to your students, you'd have more of an overhead view and you'd be discussing it, but I'm going to do this quite quickly with you. So the first 2 bars go like this. 2, 3. So my left hand went down from a fifth on D to a fifth on C. So can you play this? 2, 3. Okay, so do that. Okay, great. Now we have the next 2 bars are the same. So now the first 4 bars are. Okay, so you've got that. Have a go of that. And then the next 4 bars are almost identical, but instead of going down to C, we're going to go up a semitone to E flat and B flat. Now, if I was teaching this to a little kid, obviously I wouldn't be saying go up a semitone. You would use your own style of actual teaching. But now the next 4 bars are. Okay, now the next 4 bars after that are the same as the first 4 bars. So that's easy. Let's do that. Excellent. And then the last bit goes like this. Your left hand goes down 1, but pinky goes to B flat. Then down another 1, and it's short. And then jump to the bottom D, and the ending is. Okay, so let's do the last 4 bars again, which is a fifth on B flat, and a fifth on A, and then jump down to the D and. Okay, now I'm fast tracking this. This is obviously very fast, but let's see if we can now play through the whole of level 1 by rote, and I'll cue you as we go. All right, 1, 2, 3. Down to C. Do that again. Good. Now we're going to move up to the black notes. And again. same as the first 4. Now left hand moves down, 1 on B flat, 1 on A, and then down the bottom. Okay, how was that? Is that all right? Okay, we're gonna move on now. All right, so imagine you've taught that. What I do is I teach that by rote. Students are not seeing the score, and they can play that. This would be for say somebody who'd been learning to play piano for about a year or so. This is classified as a 3-hat piece. So what happens is students play that. I teach it to them by rote, and they can go home. They can play that, let's say, for the week. When they come back the next week, that is when I show them the score. Or if it's a slightly more advanced or capable student, I might show them the score that lesson, but only after they've played it. So now we're going to put the score up on the screen, and Beth's going to do that for me because we had a bit of trouble getting the clarity before. So now you can see the score of Spanish. So I say, this is what you just played. This is what you already played. And probably we didn't get the dynamics so well over Zoom, but they already played the last 2 bars fortissimo because you modeled it to them that way. It was taught to them that way. They're already playing with perfect rhythm and fluency because it was modeled to them that way. So it's up to you as a teacher how much of theory you want to point out at this point, but I usually just say, look, this is what you played. Look, see in the second bar there, that's why we held that note longer, because that's a 3-beat note. And do you see how we've got in bar 6 some little flats? Well, that's those little signs there, that means to go to black notes, and that's what you did. So you can show students this is what you've already played. Okay, so they've got that. Then I put level 2 in front of them as well, side by side. So if they're up on the piano, they would actually have hard copies out in front of them, side by side. And I say, okay, what differences do you see in level 2? And they can spot the difference. Now, if you want to, if anyone's feeling brave and wants to come off mute, then you can tell me the differences that you spot. So I might be opening up a whole can of worms here. But okay, so if nobody is feeling brave, then that's fine. So your students will say, okay, they have spotted a difference in bar. In every second bar, there's something happening in the right hand now. The right hand's not empty anymore in bar 2 and 4 and 6 and 8. So they'll see that difference. And we can say, okay, so what's happening in that bar? So we've got right hands playing something. Do you notice, is it similar to what you've played before? And they'll be able to see that the top note's the same, but the bottom note's one lower. So then we can get them to play that. And we can see if they can add that in. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So we can get them to play that. And then they'll notice that in bars 6 and 8, it's a little bit different. So instead of the interval of fourth, we have an interval of second. But we can draw their attention to the fact that their pinky is going to stay on A the whole time. And once we've spotted all these differences and had a little practice of them, then we're going to play level 2. So now if we go to the next page, please, Beth, we can have just level 2 on the screen. So now let's all play level 2 together. And now we are reading. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now I realised that we didn't talk about all the differences there, because obviously in bar 13 and 14, the left hand, the notes are longer. There's all these things that they can spot, and they're able to do that. So that would be maybe the next week, and then they're going to play Spanish level 2 at home that week, and then the next week when they come for their lesson. Or someone's saying, are they expected to read at level 2? They are not understanding necessarily every single thing that's on the page, but they are definitely following the differences in the score. And this is the beginning of reading skills. So now the next week we come back and we put level 3 in front of them and spot the difference between level 2 and level 3. And they can see, oh, yes, there's a big difference. The right hand looks really different. And they'll say, oh, there's more notes. There's more black notes. So you can say, yes, there are more notes, but are they different or the same as level 2? And they will be able to tell that the notes are actually in the same position. So now we're going to drill the fact that the rhythm is different. So instead of in level 3, what that looks like is that's the sound. Now, because they will also have been doing rhythm activities and notation activities separate to this, so at the Rote Repertoire, this is just one of their repertoire pieces. They're doing all sorts of other things with you in their lesson. They probably already do understand that rhythm. So now they can see that the right hand has just been converted to that rhythm, and pretty much everything else is the same, except for the fact that we've got in bars 13 and 14, or bar 14 down there, that minim has been converted. And then they'll see another difference at the end. There's a funny sign under the last note. And what does that mean? Oh, well, that means to play an octave lower. So they're going to jump down and do it. So it doesn't matter if they don't understand the ins and outs of D, natural minor. It doesn't matter if they don't understand exactly all about the grouping in 3/4 time. That's right. It is analysis and variation. Essentially, they're playing 3 variations. So now we can play level 3. Okay, so let's all play. We're going to go on to the next page, which has just level 3, so that we can all read that. And we're all going to play level 3 together. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. So that is actually the real piece, Spanish. That's what they've gotten to. So level 2 was like a simplified version, and level 1 was a simplified version again. So the idea, everyone needs to make sure they're on. There we go. That's better. Okay. So what piece can we learn to play in sleep? This is so exciting.
Samantha, unmute yourself.
Okay, I'm unmuting myself. So with Spanish, if we had shown students this score straight up, if we'd have just put that in front of them, that would have been very intimidating. But that is what they end up reading at the end. They are following it. They can see the differences. They can see the differences in the score, and they are relating those differences to sound. And that's what music is all about. Sound first and then symbol. So it doesn't, and then they've got other pieces. I mean, I've written, sight reading books which go from notation first, and it's the type of pieces they might have in this book are like this, where we're going from notation first, and we're not expected to sight read hands together. But the idea of the Rote Repertoire series is that they have access to exciting and ergonomic repertoire that they are actually following. They're actually reading it by level 3 and understanding how to follow things on the page. And it takes all the angst out of having a score in front of them and being expected to read it. Probably that's the most feedback that I've had in the past 3 years, is that students are not scared of looking at the score anymore. They're excited to see level 2. They want to see level 2. They want to spot the difference, and they want to do it again for level 3. So it's the process that is important. Level 1 is taught by rote. I'm just going to show you a little summary of this. So we've got 3 levels of each piece. Every single piece is presented like this. Level 1 is the one that's taught by rote. They play first. They don't see the score before they play it. Then they look at the score. It's like, wow, this is what you played. Then with level 2, it's the other way around. They look first, then play. You spot the difference first, and you make the correlations between what those differences look like and what those differences sound like. And it's the same for level 3. Look first, then play. So this process works no matter what age of student, no matter what ability of student. So if you've got elementary students, they might take 3 weeks to go through 3 levels. But if you've got more advanced students like I do, they might take 3 minutes to go through 3 levels. And it's a really fun sight reading exercise for them. They absolutely love it. And then they've got a new piece. So it's a way of combining rote and reading. Now, I mentioned the word ergonomic. The problem with a lot of elementary pieces and with method books is that they're all centered around middle C, or sometimes with both thumbs on middle C. And so, yeah, both thumbs on middle C. This is not a comfortable position for a beginner to be in. The most comfortable position to play piano is here, where we're aligned. And not only that, to have short fingers on white notes, but long fingers on black notes. So the most comfortable keys to play in are not C major and G major and F major. They're E Lydian and A natural minor displaced from middle C. And these are the keys that I've mostly explored in my series. The reason we did Spanish today, and that's going to be your freebie, is because I've created this whole challenge for my students this term called Spanish Soundscape, which I just blogged about. So I thought that it might be fun for you to have this as a freebie, because then you could, if you wanted to do a Spanish soundscape with your students this term, then you can use this one. Okay, so now there's 3 levels of the piece. So we saw that. But then now we're going to move on to the next section of this webinar with free training, which is all about composing. Now, I have never ever thought of myself as a composer until the last 3 years, and I certainly was not a composition teacher. No way. But now I feel that I am. I can help my students learn to compose, because what I ask them all to do is to go home after they've played level 3, is to go home and create their own level 4, which they can do. Because as we said before, this is all about variation. They have just played 3 variations of Spanish. So now they can go home and make up their own variation of Spanish. And they're not intimidated to make up a level 4. It's easy for them and they can do whatever they like. So I'm going to show you now a video of one of my little students, level 4s. She's really cute. So I'm just going to share my screen and go over to here. And you can hear Alice. How cute is she? Okay. How cute was Alice? Alice is my intermediate student. She's now like 14. That video was done about 4 years ago. That video was done maybe 2.5 years ago. And she had been learning at the time for maybe 4 years, 5 years. We did Spanish quite quickly over like probably in a lesson or 2. And then we talked about different ways. So you can hear that she transformed it from this. She ended up with, putting it up an octave and putting pedal into it and just separating out the intervals, and came up with a completely different sounding piece, which was fantastic and amazing. And I'm sure that you all have your own ideas right now of what we could do with level 4. We've just got so many people on this call that we couldn't possibly hear them all. But I have this to me is where it's the essence of music. This is where the students own the piece. Once they have put their own stamp on it and made up their own version, that is when they're truly, truly engaging with music. So to me, the level 4 part of it is actually the most important part. And because Spanish is one of your freebies today, I encourage all of you to get your students to go through levels 1, 2, and 3, and then make up a level 4. And then we're going to have this whole thing going on about please post a video of your students level 4 of Spanish and go in the draw for a great prize and blah, blah, blah. We just want to get this level 4 going because it is so important for students to create. At the moment of creation, that is where you know they are truly engaging with the music. And that is the essence of what we're trying to do as music teachers. Yes, we do want to get them to read music. Yes, we want them to play beautifully, but essentially we want them to create their own and love it and have full-on engagement. So basically that's it. I'm feeling warm now. So that is kind of a summary of how Rote Repertoire works. That's kind of the end of the free training part of the webinar. So now I would love to answer some questions. And I think, Beth, we had like 3 questions submitted earlier. I can just see someone's come up with, are they learning the note names? Okay, so I'm going to answer that soon. The first question that got sent to us was what age and ability is this for? And the answer is everybody. I use it with all of my students because it's either repertoire pieces for the younger students, or it's really quick, snappy sight reading activities and composing activities for the older students. So there's rarely a lesson that goes by in my studio where I don't whip out a piece and do it. Now, the next question is, what if they can't remember what you've taught them? This is a very good question. What if you teach them this piece by rote and then they forget? Which of course they do, because prior to lockdown, they have their lesson on Monday with you, and then they have gymnastics on Tuesday, ballet on Wednesday, karate on Thursday, swimming on Friday. So, and then they go to play the piano and they can't remember the piece. So I've created level 1 reminder videos. There's a whole channel of them on YouTube. I will just show you kind of what that looks like. We've got, when you go to YouTube, they get an overhead view of the piece as well as a side view of the piece, and that's level 1. So it's not a tutorial of how you would actually teach it. It's just the performance, but it definitely helps to remind them, and you can also send them an audio file so that they can listen and practice it by listening. And then the third question that we got sent in advance is, do they actually read? Do they actually read? And I can see a few questions like that have been popping up. Now, yes, they are reading, they are following the music, but no, they're not specifically, naming notes. I mean, the thing is, no one names notes while they read. We don't name notes while we sight read. Naming notes is a convention, and sure, we need to know the names of the notes so that we can communicate with each other as musicians. But what we really need to know is how to play what we see. So we see a note on the page, we want to be able to play it, not necessarily name it. Now, I've written lots and lots of sight reading resources that teach students how to sight read. I've done flashcards. Yes, when you're teaching sight reading from a notation basis, that's a very important thing to do, and I do that. So I would start my students off on my sight reading for beginners book and pieces from Rote Repertoire. So then they are learning to sight read in 2 different ways. We have separate exercises from a notation perspective. So yes, we want to play from flashcards that go. Yes, we're going to play little fragments like. Sure, we're going to do all of that, and that gets our reading skills nice and fluent. But then when we're doing the Rote Repertoire pieces, we're also reading. We're just not necessarily understanding every single thing that is written on the page. Just like when children first learn to read at school, their books that they practice with are not particularly interesting. They have little readers that are short, repetitive books with repetitive phrases in them, and that's how they practice their reading, and they read different books all the time. But we also read to our children, don't we? We read them stories. How boring would it be for them if the only books they ever got to read were the readers that they had from school? That would not be interesting. The way children really learn to read is we read to them, we read them stories. They often follow along. They're often looking at the words on the page while we read to them. They don't know all the words there, but it's still the beginning of reading skills. So I just think it's so important to play pieces that are beyond our reading skills, but are not beyond our playing skills. And that would be the definition of rote piece. It's to play by imitation without reference to the score. What I'm doing is flipping it on its head and saying, why can't you make reference to the score? There's no reason why you can't look at the score. There's no reason why you cannot engage with the score to a certain extent. So that's what this series is trying to do. Okay, now we need questions that have been asked live. So hit me up, Miss Beth.
All right. I think one of them you've already answered, but you might want to come back and revisit. Is rote teaching beneficial for sight reading skills?
Yes, absolutely. This is the epiphany that I've had. I never used to use rote teaching. I used to feel that if I show the student how to play, then they won't learn how to read. But I don't believe that now. I think you can show a student how to play something because you're orientating their hand position, and then they can make associations with the score. It doesn't preclude reading, and it gets them engaged with the music faster. So I think the only reason why rote teaching would preclude reading is if you never actually showed the score and if you never made associations with the score. But these pieces are set up so that you can move straight to the score in a way that they can really see how the piece progresses.
And I think kind of piggybacking off on that, I'm kind of going in a different order than the chat just to kind of keep things flowing. It says, are the students learning note names? If so, how? And then related to that, would you discuss the harmonies that they're playing? Like if this is D minor or now we're moving to A major. Would you discuss that with them?
That's a very good question. All very good questions. It depends on the age of the student. So if I have a more advanced student who I want to talk about the harmonies of D minor and C major, then I would. But I wouldn't for an elementary student. No, I wouldn't. I would do it I don't want to overload them with information. It's fine to play things without necessarily understanding all the theory behind it. A bit like I learned how to say, parlez-vous français? But I didn't understand the structure of that sentence. I didn't know that parlez-vous is the inversion of the conjugated parler verb, blah, 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 blah. I didn't learn that until much later when I was doing French for my HSC. So we can play things and not necessarily understand every theoretical element. That would be analysis for an elementary student might be do it for a simpler piece that isn't so interesting to play, but is easier to understand the elements. So it's up to you as a teacher to decide what is a need to know basis. But I think it's fine to have some pieces in the repertoire where you don't necessarily understand everything on the page, yet you can play it beautifully.
Well, that makes sense. Two very practical questions related to repertoire. Do the students own a book? Like, do we go purchase Rote Repertoire, or does it come in a single sheet form? And then, yeah, I think that's a good practical question. And then to piggyback off on that, is this good for students who are just beginning? So the whole 2-hat piece, 3-hat piece.
Yes, all of the pieces that I've written are elementary pieces, i.e. suitable for students in their first 2 years of learning. And I've categorized them into hats. A 1-hat piece would be for the first 6 months of learning. A 2-hat would be for the next 6 months. 3-hat, 4-hat. Spanish is a 3-hat piece, but you can use any piece for your slightly more experienced students. It's a digital series. So if you purchase a pack, you are purchasing PDFs and audio files and video tutorials and a teacher guide and the Level 4 forum. And then the ideal thing is that the students would have a printout. You give them printouts of their pieces so they can have it side by side. They can do it on screen, but it's not ideal. There is a book form. I have put 20 of the pieces into a book. It's not easily available outside of Australia. But I can show you a screenshot of that later, and it's just called How to Blitz Rote Repertoire. That's a selection of 20 pieces, but it's really a selection of 60 pieces because each piece is presented in the 3 levels. So they always start with level 1. They always go level 1, 2, 3, but level 3 is like the real piece. And so, yes, absolutely, elementary pianists, and it's set up to be good for elementary piano techniques. So there's nothing awkward, there's nothing where they're squished onto middle C, and all the intervals are very comfortable to play, comfortable for the hand. I've consulted with Taubman specialists about all of the pieces, and I actually also ran all of the pieces past Julie Nerhaig of Piano Safari because she's the absolute expert on elementary level. So I ran all the pieces past her and all of them past Brenda Hunting, who's a Taubman teacher, just to make sure that everything fit into the elementary and ergonomic category.
Cool. It sounds like someone's really about to do their homework for summer. Like I do. I always flip everything on its head over summer. Someone also says, can you recommend a tutor book you would use with a beginner along with your Rote Repertoire series? Would you recommend Piano Safari?
I do quite like Piano Safari, yes. So I tend not to use any particular method book because I've got my own way that I like to teach. But if you do like methods, then I like Piano Safari because it has some units for reading and some units for rote. But probably as a method, for younger students, I tend to get them on to, they've got the Rote Repertoire series as their repertoire, and they've also got sight reading for beginners. Again, this is not so easily available outside Australia, but I think you can get it on Sheet Music Plus. So the actual reading skills are being taught as something separate from the repertoire. We don't want their repertoire to sound like sight reading exercises because that's boring. Eventually, we'll be able to read what we can play quite fluently, but for now, for when we're starting, let's play pieces that really sound nice, and they'll always look complicated on the page. Pieces that sound really good look complicated on the page. So, and that's why many method books avoid interesting pieces at the beginning because they just look too complex. But I'm of the opinion now that that's okay. It can look complex on the page because it's easy to play and we can still understand certain elements of that.
Cool. Continuing on with that, is there a crossover point that you see where a student is more comfortable to learn level 1 by reading rather than by rote?
That is such a good question because that is exactly what I do. So I actually do a form of semi-rote teaching with my more experienced students. I do put the score in front of them straight away. So there's no need to start off with completely by rote if the student would not be freaked out by the score. So if I was teaching by semi-rote, I would be showing this and say, look, we're going to play this piece called Spanish. Now, as you can see, it starts off with fifths in the left hand and the right hand's just mainly got an interval of a third, and you're going to be over here, and you can see what the rhythm is. Let's just try it. So they can do that, and I put the score in front of them and we go through it. We sort of talk through and maybe have a little bit of a test, and then a test run of a couple of elements, and then the score is there and they sight read it. They can do that. So the semi-rote is just orientating them where they are, and then off they go. And music by nature is quite repetitive, consists often of patterns, and they can spot the patterns, and if they've been taught to sight read patterns, that won't be a problem at all. So, and then they can smash through levels 2 and 3 straight away. So yes, if they're reading, if they're reasonably comfortable already with seeing what's going on a score, then sure, put level 1 in front of them straight away, and then they fly through, and it's really fun.
Okay, so we're going to keep going because we have level questions. So I'm going in level order. Someone else asked, on level 2 and 3, are you teaching them solely by rote? I know you covered it, but it sounds like we want a review. Are we teaching those by rote too, or are we teaching them the notation?
The level 2 is not taught by rote because first we look at the score. The first thing we do is say, how is level 2, how does it look different from level 1? And we're spotting the differences, and then we're trying out the sound of those differences. So in level 2, when we could straight away see in Spanish that there was something happening in these bars, then we're actually reading it. We're going to figure out, well, it's almost the same as that. How is it different? And we're going to play it, and we're going to see how those changes relate to sound and go through, and then we're going to play it. So everything is already set up. The idea of level 1 is that it sets up the hand position, it sets up the main patterns, and there are just small differences going to level 2, and then the same for level 3. So they really are reading it because they've got the basic framework going from the level 1 that was taught by Rote.
Cool. And then a level 4 question I thought was very thought-provoking. When your student does their level 4 composition, do you have them write it down?
That I'm so glad somebody asked that. No, don't write it down. I mean, they can if they really want to, but the most important thing is to play it. They've got to play it. I want them to experiment with sound. And if they want to write it down, they can, but it will take an age. And it's so cute when they do it. You know, sometimes they go away and they rule up their own manuscript. Like, it's so cute. But it is, if that's what they want to do, fine. But that's very, very time consuming. It takes a lot of drill. The idea of the level 4 is to create and to make something that sounds really different, and to create something that is their own. And you might give them ideas, and then they might throw your ideas out the window and say, ew, I hate that. And that's great when they hate your ideas and they go away and they create. So definitely play first. Sure, they can write it down eventually, but no, do not write it down first. What I have had some students do is they write down like a cheat sheet of what it is they're going to do, the ideas that they've decided on. So right hand 1 octave higher, left hand 1 octave lower, use lots of pedal and make it louder, or something like that.
Well, that's cool. I mean, if you can say it, you can make it happen. Another kind of thought-provoking idea I thought was, do you go through the pieces early and then go back and revisit those pieces like 3 to 4 years later? Do you ever learn them and then go back and revisit?
I think you can do that with any piece. I mean, how often? I do that with my own pieces. You know, things don't stay in our memories and our fingers forever. So yeah, revisiting pieces is fantastic. That's certainly and it's certainly great if you do have access to the whole library, which you would have if you had a full access membership to Rote Repertoire, which we'll talk about later. Then you would have access to every single piece, and you can revisit them as much as you like. And going back to pieces is really good. It gets those sight reading juices flowing. It doesn't. When I say it doesn't stay in our memories forever, there's maybe a faint glimmer that's still there that can be resurrected. But revisiting pieces is great. The shame of it is that in the reality is for our students, they're also overscheduled and they all have so much to do. And we've got so little time and so much to get through in the lessons that I don't know how many of you have time to revisit pieces with your students. It would be such a luxury to be able to do this. So if we had more time.
Yeah. A couple of technical questions, I guess. If you use your Rote Repertoire pieces and the sight reading book, the Blitz sight reading book with beginners, when do you deploy the Blitz theory book? When do you start to introduce the theory?
When do we deploy? Yes. Okay. Theory books are great if we need to formalize our knowledge of music theory for some reason, or if we are really enjoying the mechanics behind understanding rudimentary theory, or if we're not getting enough out of just getting it all out of the repertoire. I really do like to teach theory from the repertoire. If we're playing D minor, that's when we're going to learn about D minor. And what so often happens is in a theory book is that the theory book doesn't address D minor, not until book 2. Because we start off with C, G, and F major. And so if we're going to do theory in C, G, and F major, it needs to be because we're playing pieces in C, G, and F major. And my Rote Repertoire pieces are mostly not in C, G, and F major because they're not the ergonomic pieces. So I guess I'm answering this question by saying don't employ theory books too early. I'm not sure that elementary students necessarily need them. It can be fun to draw a bit of music here and there, but I don't think we need to be marking tones and semitones in scales. So my Blitz for Beginners theory book, that's quite a good one. And to learn the direction of stems and to be able to count beats, that's all great, but it really needs to be understood from the repertoire first. We have to be playing it first and experiencing the sound before we formalize that in a written environment, just like we would never get a child to be writing down words that they have not yet spoken.
Makes sense. Well, it's sort of like, in school, we don't ask students to be able to diagram a sentence when they haven't learned how to read a sentence. So if that makes sense, do you teach letter names or pitch names, or do you do it kind of side by side? I was confused by this question.
Is that what we mean by that? I teach both. My students are bilingual. They can sing in solfege. They can name notes C, D, E. But as a lot of people might know about me, I'm really not into naming notes. We have to play notes. We call notes C, D, E, F, G, A, B. Like we use the first 7 letters of the alphabet, but they don't in Europe. They don't in Asia. They use do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. So the note name is largely irrelevant. It's knowing how to recognize a symbol on a page and then play that note. When we play, we are not busily naming all the notes in our head while we play.
The names are for geographical reference?
And for reference, yes. Eventually when the conductor says to you, oh, okay, we're all going to go from the E in bar 2, we have to know which one is the E. But I did have somebody, after I gave a presentation about the perils of mnemonics at MTNA, I had somebody come up to me afterwards and say, I really took to heart what you said. When I learned to play the piano, I just decided to teach myself how to play the piano, and I worked out where the patterns were, and I sort of knew where one note was, and I taught myself how to sight read. And then she said, and I never learned the name of a single note. And that is true. You can learn how to sight read and you won't know the names of the notes. That's because it's all patterns. It's all relative.
Yeah, very cool. And then the last question that I saw was, would you be able to outline, and I feel like you did it just super fast, the specific steps of teaching a rote piece to a 6 to 7-year-old? Like maybe how would you go step by step through a level 1? Because that's the only one that's purely by rote.
Yes, that's great. Okay, so if I was going to teach Spanish to a 6 or 7-year-old who've been learning by a year, I would do warm-up activities in that key where I would know what's coming, and I would get them to do some improvisation and warm-up. So I would get them to do... and I would get them, just get them copying me. I would get them sort of feeling comfortable in the pattern just through copying and improvisation. And then when I'm teaching them how to play, I would just really demonstrate 2 bars at a time. 2 bars, 2 bars, 4 bars. Getting them to sing and clap back, getting them moving and getting them listening to it. So I guess I've missed a crucial step here. The very first thing I would do is play them the piece. I would play it for them and maybe get them moving around the room while I play it. So I'll get them listening to the piece first, familiar with the sound of it. Sometimes I even send them the audio track and say, please listen to this during the week so they can listen to it and they can be familiar with the sound before I even teach it to them. So very important to go from sound first, and then just 2 bars at a time. I'm just showing them literally imitations. So we're going to go left, right, left, 2, 3, and then I would stand up, and because I don't have a 2 piano studio, and get them on the piano, and I'm literally showing them how to play it.
That is awesome. That is all of the questions that we got in the chat. And because it is my responsibility to make sure that we stay on time, I might just say if anyone has any other questions that come up later, like I often do my best thinking in the shower. So if you have a question that comes up later and you just can't I would say either email Sam or the Facebook page would be a great place to continue that. And I'm going to put a link right there for everyone. But Sam, can you tell us more about the Spanish challenge?
Yes. Okay. So everybody is getting Spanish as a freebie. Now you're going to be getting the PDFs, and so you can teach it to your students and then hopefully get them to do a level 4, and then we want you to post it on social media with hashtag Spanish level 4. We will tell you more about that in the webinar gift pack, and for anybody who does post a video, they're going to go in the draw for getting a full access membership. Now I just want to also tell you what's coming to you. So you're going to get free PDFs, but if you would like the rest of the pack, which has video tutorials, audio files of each level, a teacher guide, if you would like the rest of that pack, then you can purchase it for 80% off. So instead of $9.90, you can purchase it for $1.90. And we're going to send you a link that you can do that if you would like to have the rest of the digital materials that go along with that pack. And of course it comes with but you'll already have the studio licensed PDFs. So every piece is studio licensed. So if you've got 40 students in your studio, you're going to purchase that pack once and you can use it for all 40 students. The book form of it is not studio licensed. That's the difference between books and digital materials. So it's like a bit like purchasing a ticket to a movie. A book is like purchasing a ticket to a movie. You get to see the movie once, whereas the digital studio license is like purchasing Netflix and watching that movie on Netflix, and then you get access to as much as you want because it's ongoing. Okay, so there's that. There's the special. Then if you're already a full access member, you are going to be getting a thank you of a whole new piece that I've written. It's called Doorbell, and it's quite cute, and it actually has nothing to do with Spanish, but that's okay. So that's a little present to you if you're already a full access member, because you already have Spanish. The other thing we're going to do is offer everybody who has come to the webinar today, or if you're watching the replay, you get this offer as well. If you would like to try it for a month, there's a mini monthly membership which has some about 6 or 7 packs in it, plus you get the new release swapped in every month. You get access to the new release for a month every month, and the new release is priced at $9.90. The mini monthly price is actually $8. These are US dollars. It's $8 a month for a few starter packs plus the new release every month, and you can try it for the first month free. So we're going to give you a link to sign up and get that first month free. And then you can cancel at any time. But if you do want to keep ticking it over, you're going to get a new release every month, which is really quite an economical way to do it. Now that mini monthly pack also has in it something which I'd encourage you all to download, whether or not you take advantage of this special or not. I'm just going to show you this. This is on the Rote Repertoire website, the 10-level non-musician challenge. And it's based on a piece called Let's Read in E. You can see it there. Now, E major with ledger lines and syncopation is not something we'd typically give to a student in their first lesson, is it? But I wrote this little piece. It's actually in 10 levels instead of 3. And I taught it, it's another one of my social experiments. I taught it to everybody I could find. I did my doctor friends, my lawyer friends, my nursing friends, my accountant friends. I taught it to every member of my family who could not read music, and everyone could play this piece within, say, 20 minutes to half an hour, going through the 10 levels. So go and have a look at that. It's a free pack on the site. You'll also see inside that pack, there's a video of me teaching it to my extremely unmusical aunt, and she is hilarious. She's absolutely hilarious. So I encourage you to go and get that one. Even if you don't take advantage of anything else today, not like, the free month, or getting Spanish for 80% off, or just go and get the 10 level non-musician challenge, because it's really fun.
Laura's got a question about the full access. She says she loves your clapback exercises. Are they in full access?
The clapback exercises are just, you just do them. I just make them up on the spot. That is, no one needs to pay for that. You can just do it. So you just it's just imitation in a canon. So are there other clapback exercises that I'm not aware of? Did I show a resource that I wasn't aware of?
No, I don't think so. I think she just wanted to know if that wasn't part of it.
A full access membership means that you get access to the entire library. There are nearly 100 compositions on the site now, and all the bundles, the Christmas bundles and the Halloween bundles and all the themed bundles. So there are 3 types of membership. There's 2 types. Sorry, there's the full access membership, and then there is a sampler subscription membership, which is what the mini monthly is. So you get a sample each month of the new release, or you don't have to be a member. You can just buy pieces. So you can just have a look through and see which pieces you might like and just buy a piece. So it's completely up to you, obviously. Right. Okay. So I think we have pretty much come to the end if there aren't any more questions. Now, I am hoping to run another webinar sometime in the near future all about composing. I would love a thumbs up or a comment in the chat if you would be interested in a webinar more about composing and how to use that level 4 and getting more out of your level 4, more out of your students, and how to do that and get them really creating. So that's what I'm sort of planning for the next one, because I think it's really amazing when you learn something from somebody who did not find it easy in the first place. So I was never someone who could improvise or compose before. I was not, I was brought up sort of, I could perform. I could read music and I could perform it, but I could never create or improvise or compose. But now I feel like I do have those skills. And so that's what I'm hoping the next webinar will be. Also, I just wanted to let you know that there's a very generous offer from BlackRock Music that Paul Myatt told me about this morning. They're going to give everyone 20% off all Blitzbooks products following this webinar, which means books like this, the Sight Reading Beginner book, and there's also the book form of the Rote Repertoire pieces. So anything in the Blitzbooks range, 20% off. That is very generous of BlackRock Music. Thank you very much for that, Paul. So anyway, so yes, next time hopefully we'll talk about composing, but can I just say to you all, thank you so much for coming this morning and taking this time out of your busy lives for us to be together. I really hope that you got something out of it, and look out for the replay that's being emailed to you, and or if you are watching the replay, thank you for watching the replay, but look out for your webinar gift pack that's going to be coming. So thank you so much. Let's all have a great big group wave. And wave goodbye, and until next time. Thanks everyone.